Here's what's coming up on Network Africa. Armed men described as terrorists attack military training school in Mali's capital, Bamako. Environmental sustainability advocates hold third recyclers conference in Lagos. Plus, the Director of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, says hunger is now almost everywhere in war-torn Sudan. Hello everyone, welcome again. I'm Joke Rogers. We begin with news coming in from Mali, where armed men attacked a military training camp in Bamako. The attackers, whom local state television ORTM described as terrorists, struck a gendarmerie school near the city's airport. Witnesses say gunshots began firing at about 5:30 a.m. local time this morning. The channel also reported that the incident has been brought under control. Mali is one of several West African countries that have been fighting an Islamist insurgency for more than a decade, but it's not clear who's behind this shooting. Back in Nigeria, President Bola Tinubu has announced the creation of a disaster relief fund to assist Nigerian citizens impacted by floods and other disasters. President Tinubu announced this at the Borno State Government House when he visited the state to sympathize with the government and people over the recent flooding from the Alu Dam. President Tinubu visited the Shehu of Borno, an internally placed persons camp at the government secondary school in Maiduguri, and had a drive-through of the areas affected by the disaster.
Yobe and other affected states. I say we will pull together a very good program for Nigeria to recover from this calamity and do better in the interest of our people. I've been thinking of how do we tackle this kind of a problem, whether it's climate change or any other means. But there must be a disaster relief fund for victims.
Elsewhere now, environmental sustainability advocates say circular economy plays a vital role in waste management and sustainable economic growth, but faces significant challenges due to a lack of funds. In Nigeria, the president of the Lagos Recyclers Association and the special assistant to the Minister of Environment, Mr. Femi Idowu Adegoke, who was speaking at the third annual Recyclers Conference in Lagos, restated the importance of financing the circular economy for the sector's growth.
Make them our member.
It's the third annual Recyclers Conference, and all key players in the environment and waste management sector are here at Bison Center to deliberate on how best to manage waste and achieve financing circular economy in Lagos State.
You'll see the evolution of waste from 1972.
The Recyclers Association is seeking partnership with the government and international organizations to drive sustainable economic growth and also bridge the funding gap.
The transition to circular economy in Lagos is not just an option, it is a necessity. But this transition cannot happen without adequate financing. By implementing the strategies, some of which I have outlined today, we can begin to bridge the funding gaps that have held back our progress.
Indiscriminate dumping of waste is a major concern. Some of the speakers advocate proper disposal and waste sorting in order to protect the environment.
In tons of waste that's generated, only very little amount of it is recycled. Globally, it's estimated that it's less than 9%. And if nothing is done about it, very soon we might be eclipsed by this waste.
With about 13,000 tons of waste generated daily in Lagos, the state government is encouraging citizens to tap into the income opportunities in waste and become more financially stable.
If we're effectively managing our waste and using it to unlock opportunities for wealth creation, unlock opportunities for job, and ultimately reducing carbon emission, then that means that we're also locking into that vision of reduced carbon emission.
When you talk about recycling and circular economy, there's close to $2.5 billion of activity in that sector. Many people don't know. You have people coming in from abroad to invest, but we want our local small and medium businesses, especially young people, to be the primary drivers of the new circular economy that Lagos State is building. So what we expect is that from this type of conference and the awareness generated, that the average resident of Lagos will understand that there's value in the waste that they're generating.
Residents have been asked to leverage the opportunities in waste recycling and get rewards for sorting waste, which will in turn help Lagos become a circular economy.
Let's get more on the environment. Joining us virtually from Lagos to talk about recycling is environmentalist Temitope Okuno. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So NIMET, let's begin from the prediction of rainfall. NIMET is predicting a second peak of rainfall in the southwest before the end of the year. Can waste management mitigate the impact, and by how much?
Oh, yes. Improved waste management can absolutely mitigate the impact of flooding, particularly now that it has been mentioned by NIMET. And this in particular can happen in the urban areas. One of the main causes of flooding, of course, that we all know is clogged drainages, drainage systems and all. And of course, when you build on canals and the likes, and this is often, when we talk about the drainages, it's often filled up with plastic bottles, nylon bags, so many non-biodegradable materials and all of that. We can actually manage our waste better through different means, the 5 R's, for example: reuse, reduce, recycle, composting, and of course, upcycling. And this would absolutely help us to manage our systems better. And of course, not forgetting proper waste disposal. There is a significant chance that we can reduce the severity of these floods when they come. And while it is hard to put an exact number on how much floods can be mitigated by waste management alone, we do know that clear drainage systems can reduce water buildup over a period of time and minimize floods risks considerably. In cities like ours, Lagos, for example, estimates suggest that flood severity can be reduced by up to 30 to 40% with effective waste management strategies put in place.
And what are the first steps to tapping into the wealth that you say is available in waste management, and how much should people expect to earn from what they submit?
Okay, so you heard the MD of Loma say that you can tap into about $2.5 billion, in the waste sector alone. The first steps for individuals like you and I and households, the first step is to start separating from source. Start separating your waste from source. Let your food waste be different. Your plastic waste be collected differently. Let your cans and your cartons, even tire waste, be collected differently. All these items, aluminum cans, cardboard, glass, certain types of metals, everything can be recycled. Now, we have many local recycling centers and waste management companies who now offer programs where individuals can, take their recyclables in exchange for cash. Recycling centers such as the Tidy Nigeria Hub in Lekki here. We have Green Hill Recycling on the mainland. We have recyclers. We have many recycling centers that can actually take in all these waste materials in exchange for cash of any kind of value, right? The amount of people, the amount people can earn will now vary depending on the type and the quantity of materials that they bring into the recycling hub. For instance, plastic bottles and aluminum cans are often sold by weight, so per kilogram. And while the earnings may not be so much, with consistent waste sorting, someone can actually make a few thousand, each month. For example, in Tidy Nigeria, we have women who bring in waste materials, every day and earn as much as 40, 50,000 besides, other job that they are doing, because we see all the street women working, they're getting money from Loma or getting money from an estate or something. So that will just augment, all of the things that that they would need money for. And then beyond immediate cash, you can start a small recycling business. So be an aggregator whereby people in your community can bring PET bottles to you, and then you can sell to a bigger recycler for even so much money because you are an aggregator. Just this morning, while I was going out with my team to a school, because we're going for a garden setup and tree planting, because it was World Ozone Day yesterday. And we needed tires to plant our trees. I stopped by the vulcanizer and I said, hey, I need your tires, about 8 of them. And he said, yeah, I'm going to pay for it. So you can imagine that your tires too can actually be a form of, money exchange for you. So when people in the community, particularly in an estate, urban areas, you can start a recycling business and say, hey, I want to just collect tires. So everybody, do not take your tires to the vulcanizers, bring them to me, I'll trade it off. We have the Geocycle of Lafarge taking in tires for their Geocycle thing that they're doing. And I mean, and that's just awesome, amongst other things that recyclables can be used for, and then you can make money from them.
Right. Environmentalist Timisope Okuno, thank you so much for joining us on the program and for explaining so much.
Thanks a lot.
Well, here's something else that's most definitely impacts the environment. What about 48 million Nigerians still practicing unsafe sanitary practices in the country? Key stakeholders have been urged to commit towards ending the practice. This celebration formed the thrust at a media dialogue themed Ending Open Defecation and Elimination of Neglected Tropical Diseases. Our correspondent, Kelly Egiga, reports.
Findings by the Water, Sanitation and Hygiene National Outcome Routine Mapping Report 2021 reveals that over 48 million Nigerians still practice open defecation. And as Nigeria aims to eliminate this issue by 2025, this stakeholders gathering is timely. Participants here discuss Nigeria's progress towards that goal and set the record straight.
The campaign, which was flagged off at that time, is to, carry out a behavioral change campaign. Beyond the facilities, we also see that there are issues around behavioral change. So that campaign was actually, it has the secretariat to coordinate the activities of ending open defecation across the country.
Now we're laser focused on tackling NTDs just because of the number of people that are affected. Globally, 1.6 billion people need treatment for one or more of these diseases. We have about 700 million Africans in need of treatment, and in Nigeria we have over 165 million Nigerians in need of treatment for one or more, so it could be one or more of these diseases. These diseases are preventable, They're treatable. They don't have to be death sentences. They don't have to be life sentences. Togo has eliminated 4 entities to date. We can definitely do this.
For the United Nations Children Fund, UNICEF, it remains committed to ending the crisis of open defecation by building a sustainable future where improved sanitation drives health, economic growth, and environmental resilience.
A lot of different things that Nigeria can do, but we really need to all work together. All of the government partners, all of the private sector, all of the state and LGA level, all of us, we need to work together to really try and stop open defecation, because it's killing so many children. And people are dying unnecessarily. Simple preventative measures, using the toilet, washing our hands, can really make a huge difference.
The dialogue also featured a panel discussion where stakeholders deliberated on strategies to eliminate the crisis and related issues. Speaker after speaker seek private sector collaboration towards addressing the menace of open defecation.
Many of the neglected tropical diseases are transmitted through water or through poor sanitation. So as I mentioned in the panel, for example, polio is particularly a big issue that is always endemic in the country and in the ground. So unless we all practice safe sanitation and safe hygiene, there is a risk that we will all get more neglected tropical diseases.
We really need to review this, put in place an improvement pattern on this policy, which will bring into perspective the roles of private sector, clear roles, the governance structure well mapped out in terms of who does what and at what stage, and how the private sector can invest into the eradication of open defecation in this country, and ensure that we get the best out of it.
To stem the tide of open defecation, UNICEF says Nigeria needs an estimated 11 million toilets nationwide, and the private sector must play a more active role in addressing the crisis. Kelly Egiga, Channels Television News.
Welcome back to Network Africa. Now to news about Sudan. Following reports of large-scale fighting in El Fasher, the capital of North Darfur, the UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric has been putting a spotlight on the escalating violence there. Mr. Dujarric referred to a statement that the resident and humanitarian coordinator for Sudan, Clementine Nkweta Salami, gave, calling on all parties involved in the conflict to refrain from targeting El Fasher and to prioritize civilian protection. Initial reports suggest that the healthcare facilities and displacement camps have been impacted, with International Organization for Migration estimating that at least 250 people were displaced in the latest violence, which took place last week.
Turning to Sudan, where the situation continues to be of very deep concern to us, especially in El Fasher, the capital of North Darfur. In a statement issued yesterday, the resident humanitarian coordinator for Sudan, Clementine Nkweta Salami, called for parties to the conflict to refrain from targeting Al Fasher and to protect civilians. This comes following reports of large-scale fighting there late last week. Initial reports indicate that healthcare facilities and displacement camps were impacted. The International Organization for Migration tells us that it estimates that 250 people were displaced in this latest round. As you well know, El Fasher is home to hundreds of thousands of internally displaced people who are at risk of famine, including in the Zamzam camp, where famine has already been confirmed.
Speaking of famine, the head of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, is convinced starvation is already almost everywhere in Sudan. Dr. Ghebreyesus spoke with this conviction after visiting the country, describing the Sudan situation as very alarming and the largest displacement crisis in the world. The WHO Director General, who recently visited a camp for the internally displaced people and a hospital in Sudan, decried what he called the low level of global attention to the country and other African nations grappling with conflict. China's exponential growth and development are as a result of its resilience and determination towards its people, something Nigeria can emulate as it seeks to strengthen its ties with the country. That's the thought of foreign affairs analyst PoliticsToday during a celebration of the national days of both countries over the weekend. Mr. Chude believes there's so much Nigeria can gain from its relations with China, but the country needs to get out of the mindset of always coming cap in hand to the table.
They have spread their spheres of influence, all over the world, and Africa is not an exception. And they have brought in a lot of things with them, and they have engaged with Africa, engaged with Nigeria, in a way that is different from what the continent has seen. With other, foreign partners. Obviously, the Chinese are not the only, country. It's not the only country that Nigeria is engaging with. So they have increased that relationship with Nigeria. If you look at even the quantum of investments in Africa in general and Nigeria in particular, it has grown exponentially. While that of their competing partners more or less has kind of dwindled over the years. And I think that there is a realization by some of these other, countries that perhaps they need to get back into the continent. But the reality is that the Chinese have actually gone ahead in terms of the influence that they have in Africa, what they have been able to do with countries in Africa, especially Nigeria, in virtually every area, every sector of the Nigerian political economy. They are very strong when it comes to issues of, the issues of, construction, for instance. They have been able to do in terms of infrastructural development. They are doing well also when it comes to IT. The telecom sector, they are there, and then again, so when you see this is the other softer side, what you call the soft diplomacy, which also has bearing at the political level. A lot of you might not know, but these things, as it is, have a way of encouraging participation, between, people that matter of critical importance to both countries, strengthens relationship at the social level. And once you're able to strengthen relationships at the social level, there are also economic and political implications, and I think they have done this extremely very well.
And down to the southern region of the continent, President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa has confirmed that his country is in talks with Elon Musk's satellite internet service Starlink to initiate its launch. The president told journalists in Pretoria that he is urging the South African-born American tech billionaire to invest at home. The satellite service was recently introduced in Zimbabwe, now the 16th African nation to gain access to the high-speed internet service. Meanwhile, the South African government has been criticized for blocking regulatory approval for Starlink to operate in the country. Mr. Musk's aerospace company SpaceX has struggled to obtain a license to operate in South Africa from the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa due to a requirement that any applicant must have 30% ownership from historically disadvantaged groups.
As your major deterrent, it has been slow implementation on our side, for instance, on the cadastral system, which we should have speeded up. It's now being speeded up, it's now going to fall into place, and it's now going to be implemented. On, for instance, internet availability and access, yes, Starlink has made an approach to us, and they are operating in 70 countries. And having had a discussion at a number of levels with some of the people who are involved in that company, we said, we are going to process your desire to come and invest in our country, as we see great benefits for internet connectivity for the people of South Africa. And we will also deal with some of the concerns that current players have in that space, because they have raised their concerns, as you would know, and of course, fears and concerns is what they've raised. But as I said earlier, Carol, it's the interests of the people of South Africa that I want to focus more attention on.
That's Network Africa today. Thank you for watching. I'm Joka Rogers.